Hey guys, it's episode 101 of the HooperCast. It's me, Mr. Hooper, coming to you not from the HooperCast studios. I'm actually, I'm at a different station right now, so what you think about that? Probably nothing. It's about what I expected. Nothing. Hey, so this week is a little bit of a prereq. Dustin is knee-deep in the... Oh, what was I going to say? Knee-deep in what, you might ask? Well, the answer is he is knee-deep in the Savannah Film Festival. He's working and he's building up a gigantic backlog of current films or films that aren't even out yet that he might bring to this our little show and talk about. So while he is off on assignment, as I like to call it, you're just left with me. So I've got something on my mind. So this past Sunday was The Walking Dead. And it was, this is telling me the third episode of season 6. Was it really just the third episode? I guess it was, because the first one was like, hey, we're going to hurt everybody. And the second one was, hey, the village is going to get attacked. And then the third one was, oh, yeah, okay, it was. And also IMDb says it is. Anyway, so this is season 6, episode 3, and it's called Thank You. I don't think I have to... Dustin and I usually don't do mid or in the midst of the season discussions. We are not a Walking Dead podcast. We don't exist purely to recap the show every week. And I'm really not into speculation on a show. Well, I'm not really into speculation of this show in the midst of the season. I'm not really into it. Like I like to talk about Breaking Bad with Dustin like every week because it was like, oh man, because it's such a good show. The Walking Dead is not Breaking Bad. It never will be, and it's overstayed its welcome already, in my opinion. I just wanted to share some thoughts because I have some predictions about how next week's episode will unfold, and I would like them preserved forever on the internet in case I'm right or in case I'm wrong. But I think Dustin and I, at least I feel, I'll speak for myself, I don't feel like I do enough predicting on this show. And I'd like to try my hat at it. I see political pundits left and right making predictions, and most of the time they're wrong. So it's just like, all right, well, how hard can it be? And since this is my show and I can do whatever I want, I'm going to do that. So if you haven't seen the episode, please don't listen, because if you somehow escaped social media spoiling a major character death, quote unquote death, then I'd hate to be the person that spoiled it. Then again, the show has like 4 or 5 listeners, so whatever. In this episode, I'm going to focus just on Nicholas and Glenn. I usually don't have many thoughts. The analysis is usually with Dustin, and I color commentate with surprising amounts of insight. But what I am noticing is, so Dustin and I have talked about this. The Walking Dead it needs to change something up, because the walkers are not scary and have not been for quite some time. They're not a threat. 2, they need to introduce, and so our the fix that we suggested was either the walkers needed to mutate, which it's too late to do without kind of jumping the shark, because you can't all of a sudden have them running, because how do you make that make sense? If they were going to have them running, they should have done that from the get-go. It would have been way more scary, but it's too late for that. Sorry, Max Brooks. Everyone took a big shit on World War Z. Like, why would zombies run? Well, zombies would run because as soon as they are reanimated, they still have functional muscle tissue and a full range of motion. The muscle tissue won't regenerate, but it's like I said, last time we talked about this. If you're at the Olympics and a zombie bites all the sprinters, I'm gonna get inside a locked. I don't know where I'm gonna hide. There's nowhere for me to hide. I guess I hope I could climb a tree better than them. But for at least 30, 40 minutes, whoever bit Usain Bolt and what's his face, the South African guy who shot his wife, the girlfriend. Damn it, what's his name? The Blade Runner guy. Oscar Pistorius. Okay, so whoever bites Oscar Pistorius and Usain Bolt and, what's his face with the white boy with the sunglasses from the USA. Anyway, whoever bites all those people, you're screwed because, those guys are all stretched and primed. They're about to run an Olympic sprinting. They're going to sprint after you, catch you, whatever. And only after about 30, 45 minutes when, the muscles, fatigue, they will never recover. So why did I just say all that? Oh, because the point is they should be able to run, but they chose not to go that route. So whatever. So you can't make the zombies mutate. The next choice is a two-parter. You either have to have a human threat come in, and or preferably you have to have the zombies just kind of die off. Like, you can't tell me. So human tissue deteriorates at a certain rate. So how are there zombies? How is one walker roaming the earth for like 4 or 5 years at this point without the body just completely deteriorating? That doesn't make any sense. And all it would take is for them to basically just say, hey, we've got, walkers eventually die off, but, you can't just wait around for them all to die because they keep making new ones. Okay, all it takes is one sentence of exposition to explain that, yes, eventually there will be no more walkers. The question is, will there be no more walkers after they've made the human race extinct, or will they all die off and then the remaining humans will have outlasted them? My whole point is, let's have them outlast the walkers. Let's have them encounter walkers every now and then, like you stumble into a warehouse, and there's a pit of them. But I don't know quite that I believe that at this point there's still, thousands of walkers walking around in large groups. So, and plus they're not that they walk slow. They can't talk. They can't deceive you, or lie to you, or think as a group or anything. So there's that. Human beings can conspire, can infiltrate, can use tools, can fire guns, that sort of thing. So they're way more dangerous than the walkers are. So what they need to do is turn this kind of transition to more of like a regular post-apocalyptic thing, because the zombies aren't working for me anymore. I didn't really intend to spend this much time belaboring this one point, but I just feel like it's worth pointing out, because I feel like I need to make myself clear. This is what I wish for the show, because this is what I think would make it the most interesting. Now, since they're not going to do that, what I would call Plan A, aka good writing, what they've done is they're thinking, well, how else can we make this show scary or whatever? Or not scary, but how else can we ratchet up tension and keep people engaged and connected to these characters? Plan A there would be write interesting characters. They don't want to do that, so their whole thing now is, well, let's start killing people. And it's like, okay, well, good. At least you're doing something. At least you're taking action that will have a permanent ripple effect and affect the other characters and perhaps make them more interesting through the loss of someone close. So, late last season, they had this dude, Nicholas, who lived in this, little cubby bubble village with everybody, who was afraid of Glenn and was threatened by him or whatever, and essentially led him out into the woods and tried to kill him. It was a really tense, and admittedly a very tense scene, because I was just like, oh, you hate this guy, Nicholas. Glenn decides not to just straight up murder him in the woods. He saves his life. And so for a few episodes and into this season, he does not really trust Nicholas. He doesn't want to be around him. He just, stay away from me. I'm not going to kill you, but stay away from me, because you're going to get people killed. You don't know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. So Nicholas, this relationship between them is interesting. It became interesting. By some miracle, they wrote an interesting character dynamic. We have all this stuff that's played out. And the two most interesting things that were going on was what's going on with Carol, because she's like pretending not to like know how to kill people, but and she's talking amongst all the housewife ladies like, oh, I'm just as like a sleeper, because she doesn't trust them and she doesn't want them to know how capable she is. So there's Carol, and then there's this relationship between Nicholas and Glenn. So they have this thing where it's like Glenn is now mentoring Nicholas. like, which is an incredible, virtuous gesture on Glenn's part, instead of just ignoring the dude and just letting nature take its course, i.e., letting the walkers one day catch up to Nicholas and kill him because he is inept and unable to defend himself properly, or others. But then he decides, no, it's better for the group, it's better for Nicholas. He deserves, even though he tried to kill me, he deserves the chance to learn and to contribute. So he starts mentoring the guy. So I was just like, man, this is interesting. So in this episode, they go back to some, village where Nicholas initially fled and left his friends to die. And he encounters one of them who's a walker now, and he's guilty about it. And so, whatever. And so Glenn does the whole thing of like, you can't, you are not that guy anymore. You were, so it's just like, I was like, man, that's some really sweet moments where Glenn is essentially this dude who's just he's not a basket case, but he's clearly like, at least now he's aware of what a coward he is. And Glenn, instead of saying, yeah, you're a coward, like you suck, you should just kill yourself, he's like, no, like suicide prevents him basically. Like, no, you're not a coward. You are not a coward anymore. What you can do is learn from it. And, and I was thinking, what would be crazy and good drama is, especially when you got characters on TV shows that you love and you look back, it's like, man, remember when we hated that guy? Like in Lost, I hated Sawyer in season 1 and a little bit of 2. I was like, I hate this guy. All he does is screw everybody over or, throw a wrench in plans. And then by the end of the show, you're like, he's one of my favorite characters. And so he just starts off as this antagonist, basically. So I just thought the same thing for Nicholas. I was like, I don't recognize this actor. All I know about what this dude's face is that he's playing this guy Nicholas, who is a son of a bitch, and he's a coward. But maybe they're going to build him up into one of the main characters, one of the highest functioning members of the group. Maybe he'll be more capable. He'll be up there racking up a body count like Michonne, or Carol or Daryl. I just thought, what if a couple years from now we're like, hey, this dude, this actor would be a household name, then maybe kill him or something. I don't know. So anyway, they get cornered. Glenn and Nicholas get cornered. They get on top of a dumpster, and they're trapped by a big horde of zombies, of walkers, whatever. I don't care. The whole episode, you're meant to there's foreshadowing that Glenn's going to die because, talking about how no one gets left behind and whatever, and then he's taking out all these precious items, that you recognize, like the watch, and I'm going to get home to Maggie, and, calling Rick dumbass over the radio, which is a callback to the first time you heard his voice when he, when Rick was stuck in the tank, and he's like, hey, dumbass, what are you doing out there? So the callback is like, oh, that's right, dumbass. Oh, wait, is that his sign off? So they get cornered, and then a series of really stupid events happens. Now, understand my point of view. Okay, here's what happens. Nicholas shoots himself in the head. His body somehow falls onto Glenn. They fall into the horde, and the zombies start, and it appears that the zombies are ripping Glenn apart and eating him, and Glenn's dead. So let me be clear. I'm not the straight up, I don't care if Glenn's dead or not. I really don't. I'm not these people who are like, no, not Glenn. One, because it's television and it's a life or death stakes. He's going to die. Someone's going to die eventually who isn't Rick. Rick's the main character. He's not, I'm not worried about him. So, yeah, they're going to have to kill Glenn sometime. So it's just like, all right, well, he's dead. This is what happens. And two, I'm not really emotionally connected with Glenn that much. Again, because the writing's just not really doing it for me. So I'm not like, oh, how could they kill Glenn? And I'm also, I don't think Glenn's dead. And it's not because oh, I want him to not be dead or blah, blah, blah. I think he's not dead because the writers are stupid. I say a series of dumb events for a reason. It's a series of dumb events because here's what they could have done. Like I was mentioning before, they've got Nicholas being built up and being redeemed, which is, for me, the most satisfying thing to watch with character is growth, obviously, but redemption especially. I'm a firm believer in the pick yourself back up again. You know, you can always do good even with the worst. You know, that's just something I believe. So I enjoy watching characters go through that. That's what I like to see in characters. So I think that it's a series of stupid events because they have him. So instead of having him continue until this great potential for a character redemption, instead they go, no, life is bullshit, and they have him pull out a gun and commit suicide. So they take Nicholas, a guy whose self-esteem and self-worth and actual worth as a member of the group was being built up and redeemed. And so they basically scrapped all the progress they'd made with him and had him commit suicide, which honestly he should have done or would have done the first time, like after Glenn lets him live in the woods. Glenn would hike back to camp and that guy would just, hang himself or something. That would have been the moment at his actual lowest point. I can see him at that low point there. And you could argue, it's the fear and whatever, but then why invest all this time in his character redevelopment if he's ultimately not going to have the strength and the will to go on? So it just makes every moment with him and Glenn before that meaningless. So if you were ever to rewatch the show again, you'd watch all that and go, doesn't matter, that guy still kills himself. Glenn's wasting his time. AKA, this scene is pointless. AKA, I don't want to watch it. AKA, show's lost my attention. So there's all that with Nicholas. 2, he can't even kill himself properly. He can't even begin to lean back and then shoot himself so that his momentum goes backwards. He has to kill himself in such a way that not only when he dies is he dead, but his dead body falls on the only other person. So some of these message boards are like, oh, he probably killed himself in an effort to save Glenn. Well, he failed because he didn't save Glenn. Instead, his whole dead weight fell onto Glenn, and they both fell into the pit. So there's that. I do agree with the truthers. I don't think Glenn is dead. I think that because if he was dead, it would be very explicit that he'd be being ripped apart. There'd be blood coming out of his mouth. You'd see someone bite into his arm. It would be unmistakable. They have plenty of deaths and dismemberments that happen in camera on the show. It's 2015. It's not impossible to do, and it's been done on this show with similar situations as this. So it's not like they were unable or didn't have the budget to show a clear death in camera, and they would have given him a clear death in camera because he's a big character. You would not imply the death of the main character or of a main character like that. You'd make sure people knew. Also, anytime Scott Gimple or Greg Nicotero are asked about this, they never say, oh yeah, Glenn's dead. They sort of, well, people die, you just have to watch the show. So that's kind of one of those things where it's like, you don't really say that if the character is dead. You don't you don't wait till episode, 13 at the very end of the season and go back and say, okay, so by now you know that, 9 weeks ago, Glenn's really dead. You would just say the next day, yeah, he's dead. Farewell, Glenn. Stephen Yeun would tweet out R.I.P. Glenn. So much fun working on the show, blah, blah, blah. So there's none of that. Next point is people have seen Stephen Yeun on set with a bunch of actors no one recognizes. So here's my theory. So one, I think it's clear that I think the next episode is going to begin this way, or it will include this at some point. Maybe not the next episode, but the next episode that deals with this exact event is they're going to open back up with a shot of that same horde of zombies in that location, all bent over eating this fleshy pile. And I think it's clear that they are eating Nicholas's body, which is on top of which is pinning Glenn's body to the ground. So you see Glenn screaming or whatever because he's scared, and they're eating someone on top of him. That's what I think is happening. They're ripping apart Nicholas's body because you don't see it clearly being eaten up either. So they're eating Nicholas's body, and Glenn's underneath it. Then it's like, okay, well, Connor, wait a second. How can Glenn survive that? Because when they get through ripping apart, Nicholas's carcass, they're going to look down and go, oh, here's another live body, and rip him apart. So what's going to happen is this new group of actors who, we've seen set photos of, that tells me that they're going to show up and fire a gun or something, or, essentially lure the horde away before they can actually make their way to Stephen Yeun, to Glenn. They're going to draw the herd away and rescue him, and then he's going to spend the entire season with them instead of his group. So everyone out back at camp will still, because that's the one piece of drama they want to preserve. They don't want to do the actual work of preserving this new interesting dynamic between Nicholas and Glenn. So they don't want to do that. So they kill Nicholas, and they don't want to deal with the fallout of actually killing Glenn and having to write a satisfying reaction, particularly from Maggie and other characters. So they don't actually go through with offing Glenn. And 3, they're thinking, well, why would we kill him when we can just keep him alive and make everyone think he's dead? They're going to think he's dead because these new people are going to rescue him and or kidnap him, right? They're going to go back, Michonne and everyone's going to make it back to camp, or back to the city and go, hey, where's Glenn? Where's Nicholas? They're going to run back to that location. They're never going to find Glenn. They're going to find his watch and, a bunch of blood and dead carcasses probably without faces, and go, oh my God, that's Glenn. He was eaten. Oh, my husband's dead. And so everyone's going to go on believing that Glenn is dead. So you'll still get all the reactions and the actions of grieving people who lost their friend without him actually having to be kicked off the show. Meanwhile, you as the viewer are experiencing tension because you're like, but he's alive. If only you knew that he was alive. And he'll be with this new camp of people, having God knows what done to him. And then maybe he'll escape them and make it back to camp or whatnot. So that is my prediction for The Walking Dead for this season 6. Glenn is alive, and they were just eating Nicholas on top of him. He's going to get rescued / kidnapped by a new crop of people, perhaps by the people who were attacking the camp. I don't know. Probably not. But a different group of people. Everyone's going to come back to find Glenn. They're going to presume him dead. And I guarantee you she's going to find the watch that Herschel gave him, and that's how it's going to confirm. By the way, he couldn't have just dropped his watch. Like, if he's running from a horde of people and he drops his watch, is he going to do that thing where he goes, but the watch, it's so rare, and run back and try to get it and risk his life? Or is he just going to run off? And then if you go looking for him and you find his dropped watch, it's like, oh, a watch is on the ground. Glenn must be dead. No, bitch, I just dropped it and I ran. It's just a watch. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so that is my prediction for The Walking Dead going forward. And I just want to see if it's right. And so I wanted to do this. I don't typically do this without Dustin because I'm codependent, but also because by the time that we'd be able to record together next, this will have already happened or not happened, and then I can't claim that I predicted it. So here I am saying first right here that that is what I think will happen. I'm sorry it took so long to explain it, but I just want to be very clear. That's my prediction. And because I think the writers are just ineffective. Like, why go through? Why not just kill? I don't know. It's the 6th season of the show. You got to start killing people, and I don't know. I don't know what I want the show to be. It's just like it's getting exhausting. And people are like, oh, you should watch Walking Dead. Like, it's awesome. Like, oh, it's cool. And it's just like, is it cool because we just like the idea of zombies, or we liked the show in the past, therefore we don't want to admit that it's lost its thunder, or because it's actually a good show? Like, which is it? And I think people don't really want to admit that the show is kind of overstaying its welcome. Because The Walking Dead, it's cool to be into The Walking Dead, and if you don't like The Walking Dead, like, what's wrong with you? And it's just like, I don't know. And I hate all these interviews, like with Scott Gimple. It's just like, like, oh, I never saw Nicholas as a coward. I always saw blah, blah. And I'm reading this whole like interview with like him and Entertainment Weekly, and I'm just like, I really don't understand either when I'm reading interviews like that, where the executive producer has a completely opposite view of the characters or the situation that I do as the viewer. Because then I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like, why do I think that Nicholas is a coward? I don't know, because he does cowardly things. That's why I think he's a coward, because he does cowardly things. But the producer is just like, oh, I never saw him as a coward. Like, what do you think? Do you think the actor's going to come up and say, hey, man, why'd you call my character a coward? That means you call me a coward. Like, who cares? Who cares? Who really cares? It's stupid. But I think that anything other than what they did at the end of that episode would have been better than what they did. You shouldn't have killed Nicholas, and you shouldn't have done the red herring of, everyone thinks Glenn is dead. You should have had him fall into the horde and then not come back. instead of trying to imply that he's dead, because it's like shock value. It's like, oh, Glenn's dead. Look, he's dead. And then later they come back and be like, we didn't kill him. We're clever, right? No, we all know he's not dead. He is not dead. And if he is dead, by the way, they did a terrible job of confirming that. They did a horrible job, or they purposely misdirected everyone to think that they figured out that he wasn't dead. It's like a double agent. It's like, oh, he's really dead, but we're going to make it look like he didn't really die so that people will talk about the fact that he's not dead, and then when he's really dead, then they'll be surprised again. It's just like, it's like cheap publicity. It's just like, it's like controversy for controversy's sake. Let's kill off a beloved character, and then we'll make people think that they know better and that we didn't really do it. And then when we show his decapitated body, it's like, oh, never mind, they did kill him. Wow, they're amazing. It's just stupid. So I'm getting fed up with the show, but I pay for cable and I DVR it, so whatever. It's fine. It's fine. It's just, I want to see more humans showing up, like they have been, to threaten Rick and everybody else, because I don't know why these people are trying to kill them. And that's interesting to me. That is what is interesting to me about the show, not the stupid walkers and the dumb, cheap thrills, whatever. You know what else is interesting? The actress who plays Maggie's a Brit. Didn't know that. So that's cool. Anyway, hey, what's in theaters this week? Our Brandis Crisis, some Sandra Bullock movie that's whatever. Got a movie called Burnt. What else opens? Oh, I guess everything else opens on the 6th. Okay, so nothing's really in theaters that interests me for sure. But hey, you know what? We had different tastes, different strokes for different folks. That could also be like a billboard. No, not like a billboard. If you were to billboard advertise for like a harem or like a hooer house, come down to Bill's Hooer House. Different strokes for different folks. That's what we do here. That's going to do it for this episode this week. I think I have talked enough, probably. So if you hung around, thank you. Tune in next time. We're going to get together and record next week like we normally would. I'm also going to bring back an old friend onto the show very soon. And we're going to keep going strong with the HooperCast. I'm just so tired, and I can just feel my brain shutting down with every word I speak. My synapses are not firing. It's a lot later in the day / night than I usually record. So I'm just I am running out of steam with every breath I take. So, thank you guys for listening. The few of you who are actually listening, just keep listening. And, oh dear, I should just get off. I should just get out of the show right now. I should need to end the show. Yeah, next week, whenever Dustin is done with the film festival, I will speak to him about Justified, which, hint, hint, the show is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. We'll talk about some film festival movies and, some other stuff as well. So stay tuned. Thank you for your patronage to the HooperCast, WHUP, WHOOP. See you guys later.